You're not here by chance. There are no accidents in the universe, only divine alignments. From the moment you were born, something shifted. Your bloodline silent prayers, unspoken dreams, and forgotten battles found their answering you. You didn't just inherit DNA. You inherited a mission, a divine mission. The weight you carry, it's not just your own. It's a legacy of every generation that came before you, waiting for you to break the cycle, to rise, and to restore what was lost. You are the legacy your bloodline has been waiting for. This is not just another story. This is a calling, a message meant for you, one you've been waiting for, even if you didn't know it. There are no coincidences in the universe. Every challenge, every burden you've carried has been preparing you for something greater. The weight you feel, the struggles you've endured, they're not yours alone. They're the echoes of your ancestors reaching out to you, asking for restoration. You were born to rise, not just for yourself, but for every generation that came before you. You are the legacy your bloodline has been waiting for. Ion sat on the edge of his bed, staring into the quiet darkness of his room. The world outside was still asleep, but inside him, there was a storm brewing, a storm of questions, of memories, of whispers from the past. His grandfather's voice echoed in his mind. One day, you will rise, Ion, not just for yourself, but for all of us. He had heard those words 100 times before, as a child, as a teenager, as a young man struggling to find his place in the world. But today they felt different. Today, something deep within him was stirring. Something was waking up, a part of him he had tried to ignore for years. The weight of his family's history was heavy, like a stone tied around his neck. His ancestors, the ones who had built this land, fought battles, lived and died, never getting the recognition they deserved. Ion felt their presence in every corner of his life, in every decision he made. It was like they were watching, waiting for him to do something with the legacy they had left behind. He stood up, the cold floor beneath his feet, grounding him. There was no turning back. He couldn't escape it anymore. His bloodline had always carried burdens, struggles, and unspoken dreams. But it was time for a change. The path was not going to be easy. He knew that. There were obstacles, some visible, some buried deep within him. The doubts, the fears, the weight of expectation. But one thing was certain, he was born for this. The village was still asleep as he walked outside, his footsteps silent against the damp earth. The land, once full of life and hope, now seemed barren. It mirrored his soul in some ways, a place that had been forgotten by time, ignored by progress. But Ion knew that wasn't the end of the story. As he walked down the narrow road that led to the city, he couldn't help but think about his father, who had worked tirelessly his whole life, never complaining, but never reaching the heights he had dreamed of. His father's hands were rough from labor, his body worn from years of working the fields. Yet, Ion saw something in his father's eyes every day, a quiet hope, a hope that one day, someone would rise from this bloodline. Someone would do what they couldn't. Ion wasn't just going to chase success for himself. He was going to carry his family's dream. He was going to make their sacrifices worth something. The city loomed ahead, an unfamiliar, intimidating place. But Ion wasn't afraid. He had been preparing for this moment his entire life. He was ready to face the challenges, ready to rise, ready to restore what was broken. As the city streets rushed past him, Ion thought about the interview he had the next day. He had never been to a corporate building before, never worn a suit, never spoken in a professional setting. But he knew he didn't need to be anyone else. He just needed to be himself, to speak the truth of where he came from, to carry the weight of his ancestors' dreams on his shoulders. The night before the interview, he lay awake, staring at the ceiling. He wasn't nervous. He was determined to make this opportunity count, not just for himself, but for everyone who had paved the way for him. The next morning, Ion stood in front of the mirror, adjusting his tie. It felt strange, like he was trying on someone else's life. But deep down, he knew he wasn't here to fit in. He wasn't here to blend with the crowd. He was here to break the mold. The city was a different world. The corporate building, towering and cold, seemed like a symbol of everything he had never known. Power, status, opportunity. But it didn't intimidate him. It ignited something within him. The fire that had been dormant for so long was now roaring, and Ion knew this was the moment he had been waiting for. He walked through revolving doors with steady confidence, a sense of purpose he hadn't known before. The lobby was pristine, filled with polished marble and the hum of technology. He didn't belong here. Or did he? As he sat in the waiting area, surrounded by people in sharp suits, Ion couldn't help but feel like an outsider. But then, he reminded himself, he wasn't just here for a job. He was here to change the narrative, to prove that someone from a place like his could stand on this stage, could rise above the limitations others had set. When his name was called, Ion stood and walked into the interview room. The panel of executives looked up, their faces unreadable. They asked the usual questions about his qualifications, his skills, his experience. Ion answered them all, but there was something they weren't prepared for. When they asked, "Tell us about yourself," Ion paused. He could have given them a rehearsed response, talked about his education or past jobs, but instead, he spoke from his heart. "I come from a family that never had a chance," he said, his voice steady but full of emotion. "My grandfather worked the fields his whole life. My father worked for dreams he couldn't chase. But I'm here today to finish what they started. I'm here to build what they never could. I'm here not just for myself, but for everyone who came before me." There was a long silence in the room. Ion could feel the weight of his words hanging in the air. He wasn't just telling them about his past. He was laying out his future, a future that was not defined by the limits of his background, but by the promise of what he could achieve. The executives looked at each other, then back at him. One of them, an older woman with sharp eyes, finally spoke. "You're not what we expected," she said, a hint of admiration in her voice. "But that's exactly what we need." And just like that, Ion knew this was only the beginning. Ion's journey didn't end with that interview. It was just the first step. The months that followed were filled with challenges, but also growth. He took on the job, not just as a means to earn a living, but as an opportunity to make an impact. He worked tirelessly, often staying late, pushing himself beyond what he thought was possible. But every time he faced a setback, every time he doubted himself, he remembered why he was here. He wasn't just working for a paycheck. He was working for his bloodline, for the generations that came before him, and for the ones who would come after him. One evening, after a long day at work, Ion stood outside the office building and looked up at the sky. He felt a sense of peace he hadn't felt in years. This wasn't just about success. It was about something deeper, something sacred. He wasn't just rising for himself. He was rising for the legacy that had been waiting for him. The same legacy that had been waiting for every man and woman who had ever fought, struggled, and dreamed in silence. Ion was the answer to their prayers, the one they had been waiting for. And now, he was ready to carry their story forward. Months passed, and Ion continued to build his future, brick by brick. Every decision, every step, every moment was a tribute to the bloodline that had raised him. He didn't just excel at his job. He used his position to bring change, not just for himself, but for his community. He became a mentor to those who, like him, felt they had no voice. He fought for opportunities for others who were overlooked, just as he had been once. Slowly but surely, Ion began to change the landscape around him. And then one day, he stood in front of a room full of young professionals, speaking about the path he had walked. He shared the hardships, the moments of doubt, the times when giving up seemed like the easier choice. But he also shared something much more powerful: the strength to rise, the power to break cycles, the courage to rewrite history. "I didn't do this alone," Ion said, his voice strong. "I carry with me the dreams of my ancestors, the hopes of those who never got the chance to speak, to be seen. And so do you." His words echoed in the room. He wasn't just talking about his journey anymore. He was talking to them. To the generations that were yet to come, he was showing them that they too were capable of breaking free from the chains of the past, of forging a new path. As Ion walked out of that room, he didn't feel the weight of the world on his shoulders anymore. Instead, he felt the strength of an entire bloodline walking with him. They were no longer just memories of the past. They were his fuel, his foundation, his purpose. He knew that this was just the beginning. Ion had not just risen for himself. He had risen for every person who ever felt forgotten. He had become the catalyst for change, the legacy bearer for all who came before him, and for all who would follow. Now it's your turn. You are the one your bloodline has been waiting for. Your rise isn't just for you. It's for everyone who came before you, and everyone who will come after you. The time to break the cycle is now. The world needs your strength, your voice, your vision. Will you rise? Will you take the weight of the past and transform it into power? Your legacy is waiting for you to claim it. This moment was destined for you. So ask yourself, are you ready to step into your purpose? Are you ready to rise? Not just for yourself, but for the bloodline that walks with you, for the generations that are yet to come, because the world is watching. Your rise has the power to change everything. Drop a "I rise for my bloodline" in the comments if you're ready to take the first step, and share this message with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who needs to remember that they too are the legacy their ancestors were waiting for. Let's rise together